What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, we had a massive game reveal leak out a bit early, and this is exciting stuff for Final Fantasy fans, and a game I've been asking to get remastered and put on all different platforms for years now, and we're gonna go over that here today. Also, we are gonna be talking about new PlayStation 5 hardware. According to a report, could be seeing that later on this month, and we're also gonna be talking about an update for that Fire Emblem game after going over the details yesterday. Looks like just some full-on screenshots have gotten out there. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below, and we're gonna start today with Lollipop Chainsaw, which is a game I didn't think I'd hear again for a long time, if ever, but looks like we could be seeing a return for that franchise. You can see this over on Twitter. This from Yasuda saying, Lollipop Chainsaw is back by Dragami Games. Please look forward to it. There's a nice little screenshot of it here. If you're unaware, Lollipop Chainsaw came out, this was like the last year or two of the Xbox 360's life before the Xbox One and the PS4 came out in 2013. Yeah, I mean, it's a hack and slash style game, but it was like off the wall, way over the top style game where you play as a girl with a large chainsaw, you have a lollipop, and yeah, your boyfriend's severed head hangs off of your waist as you run around just cutting people up. The weird thing about this game, though, is it was never added to the backwards compatibility list, despite actually having a bit of a cult following for it. So I assume we're just going to see it remastered. I don't know if we're going to see a full-on remake or a sequel, but definitely see something in line with maybe like what we've seen for things that like THQ Nordic has done, where they get some of the older titles, clean them up a bit, and release them on current platforms. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, see what happens. Also today, one of my most anticipated games for 2022 has released, and that's TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and we have reviews for it, which we can see. Now, we are going to see more of these come in, as there's like 23 or 24 critic reviews currently, this for the PC version, sitting at an 84. And after taking a look around, everyone's basically saying, yes, if you were a fan of the old arcade Turtles games, or even things like, Turtles in Time or Hyperstone Heist, you might as well go ahead and pick this game up and play it. Also, it is going to Game Pass day one, so you can just download it there. But we did hear about things like the campaign, or the career mode, basically, where you go through and you have an overworld that you jump between levels. You can have your characters level up, get skills. Of course, you can play as any of the Turtles, or Casey Jones, Splinter, or April O'Neil. Full 6-player online co-op, and apparently it only takes a couple of hours to beat it, but you'll play through it, I'm sure, several times over in arcade mode. Whenever you have friends over, it seems like an easy game to just start up and play. So I am very excited to jump into this one later on today. Oh, and here's a bit of a surprise. Remember how Neon White had a lot of eyes on it last week because it appeared like it was pointing out that there was a Nintendo Direct that was going to take place this week? Well, didn't actually happen, obviously. But we had reviews go up for this one, and I think it surprised a lot of people because it's getting some very good review scores over on Metacritic, currently sitting at an 88. Once again, more review scores I'm sure will come in because this is like 14 or 15 critic reviews currently, but even the split's just like 14 positive, and that's it. Now, it is indeed like this runner style card game where you can play through all the different levels. It takes like a minute for each one, and some of the story elements are a bit weird and over the top with the dialogue, but the gameplay itself is really what people were excited about with this one, because it's not an experience you've had anywhere else. Using those cards to do things like double jump or destroy different things in front of you, and they have collectibles that you'll grab as you run through these levels as fast as possible. So a nice surprise there for, of course, the indie scene. Might end up being one of the top indie games at the end of the year, and, well, last week we were mostly just talking about it because it appeared like it revealed a direct. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with new PlayStation 5 hardware that could be revealed later on this month. Now, we all kind of figure Sony is getting ready for some sort of event. I figured it was going to be just a big God of War State of Play where they reveal the release date, and that could still be the case, and they could show off maybe some new accessories and a blog post. From time to time, they'll do that where they will just announce it on Twitter, put up a blog post alongside of it, like with the PlayStation VR 2 headset and controllers, and that's kind of it. Well, we can see this posted up by Tom Henderson, who has been actually pretty on the money with a lot of the stuff that he's been reporting on, saying Sony is working on a genuine professional controller for the PlayStation 5, and the company will reveal new hardware in the coming weeks, sources have claimed. It's believed the codename of the controller is Hunt, which will have several interesting features, including removable analog sticks, trigger stops, and rear buttons. Those are like flappy paddles. Now, these claims of such hardware came alongside pictures of the alleged prototype, which has been sent under the condition that the pictures are not published and the source remains anonymous. Now, going on a bit further from there, they say they basically refer to it as like the Pro controller for Sony, most likely to go alongside of Microsoft's Xbox Elite controller, which I would still like to see them do a new Elite controller to kind of go alongside of their Xbox Series line of systems. Basically, I know that if I buy the latest one, which is like what, the Series 2, it's a couple years old now, they'll just announce the next one in line, like immediately. I'll buy it the next day, boom, there's the press release for a new controller. So I'm still holding out hope that that I will be able to just get the Series 3 and not have to get a Series 2 again. But the idea of this PS5 Pro controller, I think, is a good idea, and let's face it, it appeared like Sony was testing the waters a bit with that like that back button or the macro button thing that they released for the PlayStation 4 controller. We checked it out here on the channel where you just popped it in and added back buttons and all this, which with the little like OLED display that you'd press to cycle through things. However, some of the other features are things that have become very popular with aftermarket, expensive controllers like SCUF, and obviously it's what like Microsoft looked at for their Elite controllers with the back paddles and all these things, the hair triggers. But the part that really caught my interest here is the idea of the removable analog sticks. You might be saying, well, you see controllers do that all the time, where you just take the caps off. No. This is saying, at least according to Tom Henderson, that you would remove the entire mechanism, which is something we've seen from third-party controllers, but they never feel quite right the way that they clip in. I would like I like the idea of hearing that Sony, from a first-party perspective, would attempt that because it would work to circumvent everything around stick drift. That, I think, is the next big evolution for these controllers, is getting to a point where instead of having to desolder a stick or even open it up and unplug a ribbon cable and do all this stuff, that you can just replace it yourself by removing it, even without maybe a screw. That becomes a little more difficult because you want it to still be secure. So even if there were like some screws or was hidden by plastic, as long as it was just easier and took maybe like a minute to change them out, that would be way better than what we have to deal with now. Now, the information around when they could announce this mostly seems to be speculation. However, it seems like there are other pieces of hardware that could be revealed alongside of it. I'm wondering if Sony would be preparing another like back button attachment for the PlayStation 5 controller to kind of mimic what we had with that PS4 controller. So if you don't want to buy this $150 to $200 controller that Sony is going to be producing most likely, you can spend like 20 or 30 bucks to get a little back button replacement like we had on the PS4 controller. Otherwise, though, I'm at least expecting something God of War related here coming up soon, as Cory Barlog keeps tweeting about it, so sounds like Sony's getting ready to do a couple of reveals here soon. Next up, let's talk about Fire Emblem, as there were some details that got out there yesterday from Emily Rogers that talked about a new Fire Emblem game that was in the works and will most likely, I think, be revealed during that direct that is once again rumored for like one of the last days of this month. We have Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes coming up, so yeah, why not? More Fire Emblem, let's go and throw it on the pile. But it looks like now we just have images of this Fire Emblem game that have gotten out there, and people are going back and forth trying to figure out if it was real. I took a look at one of the images that stood out to me, some things that have been said in the background, and yeah, I think these images are like legit. We could see them here. These are posted up currently over on Imager, but first appeared from what I saw on Reddit, and I mean, the images appear to be early on in like development, so I wouldn't take these as like, okay, this is what like the visuals look like. Absolutely. They also appear to be kind of off screen, like if you had a TV or monitor in front of you and you're just sort of snapping pictures with a phone. But like some of the images here, for example, one, you can see a character from the back with both red and blue hair, and then you can kind of see some other menus and character models, and some people are noticing that it's in it's in Chinese. Yeah, it appears to be a build, I guess, that was being worked on in China, so again, it's unfortunate that these images aren't a bit clearer, but even then, it's early in development. So yeah, turns out there is a new Fire Emblem game coming, which probably doesn't surprise a lot of people because that franchise has been doing better and better as we've gone along, with Fire Emblem Three Houses actually doing very well for Nintendo. So why not? Intelligent Systems can keep plugging away at more Fire Emblem games. Next up, let's talk about that massive announcement that appears slated for today, which, remember, later on this afternoon, we have a presentation from Square Enix, and they had the Final Fantasy VII logo up there with Cloud, Sephiroth, and oh yeah, Zack. Well, there's one Twitter account that's been putting out a lot of teases and just outright information around stuff that is coming up in the next day or two. They specifically did it for, we had it with Xbox, where they said Hollow Knight Silksong would be at the Xbox presentation, and it was going to be Game Pass. It was going to be on Game Pass day one, and everyone was like, what? They're going to have Hollow Knight Silksong there? That doesn't make any sense. And it was there. They also talked about Persona 3, 4, and 5 being there, and there you go. Well, now we can see the latest tweet. This from the Snitch over on Twitter. Yeah, that's the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, look, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake by now, I don't know what to tell you. It's been, what, 4 years now? Go play the game, and then you'll see this scene right here with Zack carrying Cloud, and you can see Aerith in the background. This is towards the end when they pass each other and everyone's trying to figure out the split timelines and dimensions, and hey, Nomura got his hands on it. This is what we have to deal with now. But we can see at the top, we have 4 different squares: blue, green, red, and a gray that's probably for PC. But it appears, yeah, I'm gonna say it appears that Square is finally going to do it. I just had to berate them for legitimately 3 or 4 years now. It looks like Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is getting some sort of a release across all platforms. I believe it's mostly going to be a remaster, similar to Chrono Cross, but hopefully not too similar to Chrono Cross, just based on how that one has turned out with its frame rate and everything. But if they want to clean it up and maybe do some quality of life stuff, I'm all for it. Now, you might be wondering, why is this such a big deal? Well, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core has just been stuck on the platform that it released on ever since then. That's on the PSP. So there are a lot of people who have not played it, and that entire game is based around Zack, who, well, now has been brought back into the Final Fantasy VII timeline with Final Fantasy VII Remake, to where we don't know what's going to happen next. So people should be pretty aware, I would say anyway, of Zack's journey through Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. And people have speculated around why we haven't seen it yet, and a lot of it comes back to Genesis, who is a pretty important character in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. The problem with this is, it appears to be the whole thing around likenesses for actors or musicians or anything, and we've seen that before with Sega talking about Judgment and why they were having a hard time getting it onto PC because of the likeness of the main character and what modders may do to it and all of that. But you can see this here. This was posted up over on Twitter. Gact is the person or the musician that people are referring to with Genesis. Not only has he voiced Genesis, but also, I believe he had an entire scene in Dirge of Cerberus, I think, in costume and all of this. I was saying Gact posted a video yesterday of himself singing in concert while wearing his Final Fantasy VII Genesis costume. That was posted up 5 or 6 days ago. Now that posting on Instagram seems to have been removed since then, and interesting timing there, wouldn't you say? We're coming up on this Final Fantasy VII anniversary stream. There's a game that people have been asking to have remastered or just brought to other platforms for a long time now. I think this is it. It's getting announced today, and hopefully Square is able to do a physical copy of this game. I'm not really expecting it to be released here in the US. I'll most likely have to import it, but as long as there is an option to do so, I will pick it up physically on the Switch and maybe get it digitally on the PlayStation or something there. But exciting stuff. If you are not aware of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, put this game on your radar, again, provided it looks good enough. I mean, it doesn't get the Chrono Cross treatment. We hope, crossing our fingers for that one. But Square, please do a physical copy. I would love to get this re-release in my collection, and like I said, pick it up digitally on another storefront so I can play it day one. But definitely keep an eye on this presentation, and if it's there and announced as it appears that everything's lining up for that to happen, we'll definitely be talking about it the following day in Newswave. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a big game sale that is currently ongoing at Gamefly, and I like to point these out because they're physical copies you'll get, and to be honest, right now, some of the prices are fairly low, like shockingly low for a couple of them. So if you've held out for some of those games that released, say, at the end of last year at full price, well, some of them was like less than 20 bucks. You can see this over on Gamefly. I'll leave a link to this down below. But like Battlefield 2042 is 10 bucks now. But even like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are half off. They're $30. Deathloop is $17. Again, if you order from Gamefly, I've had pretty good luck with them. You get the box art, a manual if it came with one, which good luck anyway if you buy it new for that. And the disc or cartridge is usually in pretty good shape. Pokemon Legends Arceus is $45. Even some of these PS5 games that came out pretty recently, like Horizon Forbidden West, is $50. Gran Turismo 7 on the PS5 even at $40. Ghostwire Tokyo at $30. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD at $35. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin at $28. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity at $40. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin at $35. And the list just continues to go on and on and on. So I would take a look through the list here of the different games and see if there's anything you want to add to your collection. I like to point out the physical sales when I can. I know at times we'll see digital sales and they're cheaper than this even, but it is still nice to have that physical cartridge or disc to put on your shelves, you know, just in case the internet goes out and you realize, oh yeah, all this stuff's tied to DRM. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, would you buy a Sony PlayStation Elite controller for more money than the current DualSense? 23% said yes if the features are worth it, okay? 18% said maybe, depends on the price. That's usually a pretty big sticking point. And then 58% said no, I just use the standard controllers for systems. And yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a smaller audience who would be interested in a $150 or even $200 controller, right? To have that really nice controller decked out with all the features. Some people are like, well, I don't think I'm going to use the hair triggers. I don't really play first-person shooters like that competitively anyway. I don't really have a need for any of the macro back buttons, but there are a lot of people who seem to enjoy these controllers, myself included, mostly for a more premium feeling controller, although I will admit the Xbox Elite controllers leave a lot to be desired in that front, because I've had like 2 of them break down and sometimes like the rubber will peel off. So if Sony does this, I would prefer that to them, for them to like narrow down some of the extra features they're adding and just make a really good feeling high quality controller. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Anonymous saying, maybe I'm in the minority, but I really like not seeing a game's announcement until a few months out from release, or in God of War's case, the release date. I feel like being closer, the hype actually lasts, and those dates are more likely to not be delayed. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we've seen some games get announced, then months later they come out, like Paper Mario. That got announced in like, what, 4 or 5 months? It was out and that was it. It was like all done on Twitter. But I mean, there are games where budgets are just massive, and these companies would rather have that announcement out there so people can just continue to speculate on it and try to hype themselves up over time with trailer releases. Like, I'm curious if people would have just preferred to not know that there is a sequel for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in the works currently, and Nintendo just announce it when they're like 6 months out. I think even Nintendo would prefer for that knowledge just be out there, because they want to build up things through marketing, hype, merchandise, all these things, right? Even God of War. They can announce it early and we have an idea as to how the game's going to play, right? But if it's a new intellectual property, we don't know anything about it, and it's just a logo, to me, yeah, you can hold on to that until we're closer and we have gameplay to look at. Like I'm thinking of Contraband. When that was announced and it was just a logo, I don't know what that is, and that's all we know about it now, right? So obviously something like that, they can wait a while until they have more of the game to show off, and maybe then they're closer to a release date that they're more confident in. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Are you excited to hear we might be seeing a remastered announced later on today? And then also, what about new PlayStation 5 hardware that we could see later on this month, specifically a Pro controller? Would you buy one for $150 or so? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.